Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HazChat presented by HazMat 101 Consultants. I'm one of your co-hosts, Bob Costignano, with my other co-host, sometimes crime fighter, not really, but I like saying that in almost every episode because it's funny. Hi, Derek.
Hello, good morning.
Mr. Derek Shaman, ladies and gentlemen, just coming off shift and be catching some much needed rest after this is over with.
Yes, a little bit tired.
You're tired. I'm tired. We're just old. We are literally becoming the old grumpy guys in the box in the Muppets. I think I
hmm
think we really are. That's one of our slides and one of our conference presentations, and I think we are rapidly hitting that. Me a little quicker, I think, but that's another story for another day. How's everything else been going? Good.
Everything else is good. Everything else is good. The weather's good. So you can't complain when you wake up and the weather's good.
Yes, yes. Well, you can't complain when you wake up. So that's the battle right there. Um, this is the March episode that we will be dropping here shortly. For those that don't know, it's a nice clear skies. I think in the 50s here in good old Central Florida. So we're loving the weather. It's great golf weather for us. We just like throwing that out there now and again. Today we're going to talk a little bit about certifications or training or however you want to couple it. To give you the backstory on this, for years, Derek and I don't want to say fought a battle, but we led a fight maybe or whatever into the credentialing or training, follow-up training, I guess would be a better way of putting it, for some of our members that went through the HazMat Tech program, and then they didn't have the follow-up training for that. So for our department, we have what they call alphabet soup. So the roster in the mornings put together by the staffing chief, and depending on what credentialing you have, if you have a big letter, for instance, an A for high angle, that means you are a paid member of the high angle team and assigned to a high angle truck company or heavy rescue. If you have, the same thing goes for hazmat. If you have a capital H next to your name, that means you have the 160 class. You are a paid member of the hazmat team assigned to a hazmat unit, whether it's one of our hazmat truck companies, 101 or hazmat one. So the problem we faced was that then they gave people these lowercase letters, a lowercase a or a lowercase h in our aspect for us. So that meant somebody had the 160 class, and one of the problems that we had with that is there's no follow up training. We did a beta test before I retired. Can't believe it's coming up on 5 years already.
hmm
But and it was a good start, but we never got anywhere with it. And the problem is, I had somebody float to Tower 9, which is one of our hazmat truck companies that I was assigned to, and he said, "Hey Lou, listen, I'll be honest with you, I haven't touched a meter or anything since I had the class." And I'm like, "Bro, that was like 6 years ago." He goes, "Yeah, I know." And I felt sorry for the guy, but like he couldn't even remember what a PID was or what it's used for. So there was a lot of things that were like, all right, we got to get this fixed. And it had taken some time. And Derek and I worked on some stuff for years. I mean, literally years to get this pushed. And then after I left, was it like last year? You guys started the HazMat Academy, right?
Yes. Yep. About a year ago.
Yeah. So a lot of departments will do a squad academy or whatever. And it just took us a little while to finally catch up to everybody else. So Derek, why don't you talk a little bit about that what that entails, and then we'll run into some picks for it.
So the Hazmat Academy. I mean, all the special operations, and every department is different in how they handle it. But the Hazmat Academy was kind of an effort to bring all the training to the same level. Anyone who's in the fire service can probably relate to the fact that if you're in a 3 battalion shift system, A, B, and C shift, that there's the A shift way, the B shift way, and the C shift way.
Absolutely.
So, what training people are going to receive and what information, what introduction to equipment, to things like that, was kind of dependent on who presented it to them. So, like Bob said, we identified very early on as we were getting a lot of people coming through the HazMat tech class that were certified, and getting acknowledged by the department, was that gave us the new challenge of sorting out the people who actually were proficient and competent in what they were preparing to do, and getting them up to speed on the specifics of how our agency functioned versus what they learned in the tech program. Because obviously in the tech program, which I was the program manager for a while, Bob was the program manager for it for a while out of the college. We teach the tech program on a very basic foundation because we're teaching people from all over Central Florida, and even some people from South Florida would come up. So we couldn't get too specific to what any one agency has. We had to be very broad, and the equipment that we covered, things like that, which was great in filling the need and the requirement of the program, but didn't necessarily prepare people for when they get back to their agency. If on day one of returning with this certificate, they're assigned to a HazMat response unit and go to a call, they really weren't prepared. They didn't have familiarity with equipment, things like that. So
Yeah, they're supposed to be the
happens
guy when they get back.
Right, and it happens to multiple departments, and we identified that challenge with ours, and we were like, how do we fix this? How do we rise to this challenge and make sure that the people who are being assigned to these units are not necessarily proficient, but at least have some competency and some familiarity with the specifics of the equipment here and how to apply what they learned in the technician program. There were a lot of different efforts through the years. We had checkoffs that we made in-house. Each shift, I think, had their own checkoff.
Yeah.
And this was the thing that was important for you to come and join the HazMat team. And all those things led to where we are today. So while it seems to us, for Bob and I, because we were championing this cause for a long time, that it took a while, before the HazMat Academy came about, we were taking that initiative to build these checkoffs and these different ways of vetting our personnel and preparing them and training them and exposing them to stuff. So we kind of built the foundations that the personnel who are running the HazMat Academy now, they didn't take anything that was already there, but they saw the things that they were exposed to as they came through and said, how can we make this an official best case scenario? Everyone gets the same kind of training type program. And that was where the HazMat Academy came from. The training division embraced it. The special operations chief embraced it. The administration embraced it and said, we need everyone to have the information to be able to handle this type of call. They need the skill set. They need to know how to do it. So that's what brought us to where we are now.
Yeah, because the Derek mentioned the 160 program and the HazMat Tech program, whether it's 160 hours, 200 hours, whatever it is you have. We always have said that is the minimum standards of HazMat. Like that's the Fire Academy lower level of HazMat. And, you still got to stay up on stuff. I mean, our company's motto is when you're through learning, you're through. I'm still learning stuff. We don't just teach at conferences. We sit in on classes because we want to make sure we stay up on the newest, greatest, whatever. So this is a good step in the right direction. So without further ado, let's start off with some of these pictures.
So with the HazMat Academy, I mean, with anything, there's going to be some presentation that's associated with it. It's not lecture, it's presentation. It's an interactive experience for the students there, where they're going through maybe some reference information. I believe that this class was actually going over PPE, and they were talking about lithium-ion batteries, all things that can be handled in a classroom setting, but need to be engaging. So instead of telling people and just being up there and lecturing, the idea behind the HazMat Academy is to present ideas and ask questions, find out where the students are and their understanding of things, and then build on that. Even in the classroom setting where we're inside here, there were still hands-on familiarity with equipment, tools, detection. They did sampling. So they're in a classroom setting, but still getting a lot of that didactic interaction and getting a real chance to understand the concepts that are presented to them.
Yeah, and it's not death by PowerPoint. You know, no,
No.
and nobody likes death by PowerPoint. And that's, that's one of the things that Derek and I, when we travel around the country teaching, whether it's one of our classes or a conference class, we try to size up the room in the first 2 or 3 minutes. And then that's where we gauge, where we're going to be talking at, and not to talk too high or too low, and certainly not to demean anybody, but we want to make sure the students get a worthwhile learning experience, and we're covering the material in a way that they're going to understand it. So, excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. So, and it just gives them a chance to ask those questions before we go to this setting where we're going outside. And this is more so an opportunity to put on a suit that maybe some of these people haven't put on in almost a year. So
Right.
we're putting them into fully encapsulated suits. We're putting them into splash protective garments. So they're being exposed to all the different forms of PPE that we have, and then given the same simple task that you would have done in your technician class. Doing a chlorine A kit or a B kit, or doing a leak prop, plugging and patching, all these things. It's about dexterity, and it's about moving around and really building comfort in the PPE so that they have confidence that, this PPE, I can function and I can do the task that is being asked of me.
Right. I shared some pictures on Facebook the other day of one of our past hazmat training scenarios we did at the training, our training building that we have, and that building had it used to be part of the Navy, and they had a leak prop with inside the building, but you could access it from the roof. So this is where you guys can think out of the box a little bit. We utilize that, two guys and getting level A suit into the bucket. Well, first off, how the hell do you even get in the bucket? Well, we had a ladder on HazMat. I want a step ladder for that, and just utilizing that stuff, because I think you get pulled into the same old training, like you mentioned, A kit, B kit, whatever. And here was guys in a bucket being flown up to the roof by the engineer, which is what we call him, or other people call him chauffeur, who was at the pedestal flying the stick up to the roof. And then the guys had to take care of a simulated ammonia leak, because here, at least here in Florida, and I'm sure in other places, we do have ammonia tanks on roofs in some instances. Now, a lot of those have newer buildings, they don't do that too much anymore, but we still have them, and that's where we actually have some of our leaks. So thinking out of the box in the training, not just for your technicians, but for people like this in their hazmat academy, don't just go to the simple A, B, and C kit, the same thing. It's put them through a real world scenario that maybe you had. So, and dexterity, like Derek said,
give them some tasks that maybe they don't think about, but are legitimately scenarios that may be presented to them. I mean, have someone in a fully encapsulated suit and hand them a key ring and tell them that they have to unlock the padlock for an enclosure in order to get to what their leaking product is.
Yeah.
That is a real possibility. And until you've tried to open a padlock with a key in a suit like that, I mean, you don't know where your dexterity is.
Right.
And you don't want to have those personnel who have every training they've done has been with a wrench that's 1.5 feet long and easy to hold on to and turn. And then the one time you give them something that is human size, they can't handle it because their gigantic hands inside of the PPE are not designed for human sized tools.
Exactly.
So here they're going over the grounding and bonding, talking about the actual equipment and the importance of properly creating your ground field, verifying that you have a sufficient ground field, and just making sure that, again, people who haven't had any exposure to it get a chance to actually use it. This is something that is not taught in the tech program. We cover it, but the Fire Academy does not have the resources to purchase a earth grounding system that is only used for training twice a year, one day at each of those things. So this is one of those things that we talk about the concepts of it in the class, but this is an opportunity when they're in the HazMat Academy which is a week-long academy that the department's putting on. So 5 8 hour long days to bring them up to speed on the equipment, knock off the cobwebs, and expose them to things that they may have been taught the concept but weren't taught the application.
Now, do they come on duty, or is it on their own time, or how does that work? Because I know that's going to be a question somebody's going to ask.
So they are in a paid status. So if they're working that day, they will attend on shift. If they are attending on their day off, then they are being compensated for that.
Okay. Good deal.
So there's differing opinions of that. I mean, this is also these people are not currently assigned to the team. They're people who are interested in joining the team. So depending on what a department's resources are, some departments, this may be something that you do on your own time, which, I mean, it's for the betterment of the technician, and it's about investing in yourself. But if a department can afford to pay those people, I mean, their time does have value.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're taking time away from your family, you're doing these things. And these same people also took time away to go to the classes and do those things. So, you know, if a department has the resources to be able to compensate someone for that time, I mean, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And then lastly, some real life scenarios.
Yeah. I think you were actually part of building this prop, weren't you?
Yeah, I think so. Way back. I'm surprised it's still there. That was many moons ago.
It's gone through some modifications and some actual very useful learning opportunities for some of our newer team members to understand that this is a below ground simulator for a gas leak. So basically it's just a poly line that has been sunk in the ground. It's got some damage to it, and we hook it up to an air compressor. The fittings that were on that poly line were a crimped on fitting that was designed for pressure. Over time, I think a landscape crew had actually struck that line, and well-intentioned crew members went out with some PVC fittings and PVC cement and cemented a fitting on there, and learned very quickly there was a reason why the original fittings were crimp fittings when that PVC fitting went rocketing off under the pressure that was used to produce this leak. But this is an opportunity in a non-ideal H environment to do the task of uncovering what that leak is. In this scenario, it's simulated that the team, because of roadways and sidewalks, doesn't have the option of easily digging away from the active leak. So they're having to dig at the point of the leak.
Glad you brought that up.
Yeah, because obviously, if you don't have to work in the ideal H environment and you can remotely shut something off, or if we could go 8 feet down the line and clamp it back there, great, we would do that. This was a scenario where that wasn't an option, so they're excavating and the line is under pressure, so they're dealing with the pressure blowing the sand and dirt back into the hole as they're excavating it, having to be mindful of the spoil pile and where they're putting it, and just taking those things into consideration. You'll notice that in this training scenario that there's not a multi-gas meter there. Why don't we have a multi-gas meter there, Bob?
Because I know I'm in 100% ideal H environment.
Yeah, there's no point in exposing our meter there on this call, and we explain to them. You'll see the person who's standing further back there. We're identifying where our hot zone is. So you have someone monitoring further away from the hole to determine, okay, where am I actually getting LEL readings? And so it's just a chance for them to go through the motions of it while actually performing something that is similar to what they would encounter out in the field.
Yeah,
I know there's a lot of departments that don't do this, that don't do clamping and plugging, but we do.
And we used to do, I don't know if you guys are still doing it now, but the HazMat team members use Nomex jumpsuits, the Nomex hood, fire gloves, and then an SCBA, so on, so as to not, one, permeate the gear with gas, two, get dirt all over the place, because you'll be forever trying to get rid of it. Are you guys still doing that, or because of the 2 sets of gear? Now, obviously not every department can afford 2 sets of gear, but our department does have that. Which route are the guys going for an actual gas line? Are they doing which way?
They're doing full structural firefighting gear, and if they need to, they'll swap into their
set. Okay, because I know that was a conversation that we had. One of the conferences we were at the bar. I know, weird. We were at the bar, and somebody asked us, and like I said, we had at one time been using Nomex jumpsuits so as to not mess up our gear. But like I said, we have the opportunity to switch into another set. So if you don't have that opportunity, that's something that maybe you want to look at. Obviously, Nomex jumpsuit, and please check the recommendations by the manufacturer. Do your research to make sure what you're buying is going to protect you. We just throw out suggestions, but it's upon you to do your own research. But see if that might be a viable option for you. Some departments it might be, some may not.
And again, it also depends on what your threat level is. I mean, if we're talking about a small residential line, half inch, where you
Right.
don't have a lot of flow, to where basically you're having to get right on top of it to get any readings. I mean, that kind of can change the profile a bit.
Sure.
If we're getting down in here and we're actually working with it, we want to have our guys in full gear, and more so than anything, I mean, with the SCBA to protect their airway in case there
Yep.
was some sort of an unfortunate event that occurs there. But you have the gear, guys are comfortable in the gear, so
Yep.
use
And
it.
you brought up a good point as far as, and this isn't a gas class by any means, but you brought up a good point, and we've mentioned it in other places as well. We only crimp up to, what was it, 2-inch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And 2-inch polyline. And there was a reason why, one of the reasons why we never bought a hydraulic clamp was because we didn't want to get in the business of trying to crimp off a cast iron covered line or what have you, and something catastrophic go wrong. So I know there's departments that have hydraulic tools for that. Just get with your gas company before you use that, because they more than likely will tell you, no, just call us, because there is a little finesse to that thing.
Yeah, definitely work with your agencies. Find out what they're comfortable with you doing, because it is their property that you're interacting with. And while we can say it's an emergency scene and we're here to do this, it's much better to have a mutually beneficial
Oh, for sure.
arrangement with and partnership with them than to be adversarial. So find out what they're comfortable with you're doing. Train with them. We trained with the gas company, and that's how we developed some of our techniques. And they actually provided us with some of our equipment. So
Yeah, they're a great resource.
but that's just an opportunity for the technicians who maybe haven't had a chance to do it in actual practice, or it's just been a long period of time. These are all the attendees of the HazMat Academy are all people who are being positioned for future advancement to the HazMat team, and bringing them up to speed so that we give them the best opportunity for success on the team. And we're making the team stronger, because instead of having to spend as much time for what they would consider remedial training when they're working with a new member, that new member's coming in with at least a strong foundation that now the team is building on with them, and helping get them ready to do the job that much more successfully.
And that's kind of what we, before we had the HazMat Academy, that's kind of what we did. Well, Derek and I tried to do anyway, was, people would go get their ticket, that's what we call it, the HazMat ticket, to get on a truck company, one of the HazMat truck companies. But he and I tried to make sure that they came through Engine 101 first, because that was like the core group, if you will, Engine 101 HazMat 1. So that they had, a good foundation before they went to a HazMat truck company that maybe doesn't go to as many HazMat calls that 101 and HazMat 1 does. So this is kind of taking the place of that a little bit, which I think it's great. How many academies and students have you guys gone through so far?
I would say that we've conducted at least 5 academies.
Nice.
We have another one that's coming up in April. I just saw an email about that. So we're doing quite a bit. We just did one back the end of January, beginning of February. So we're trying to get a lot of technicians that those cobwebs dusted off, and preparing for the eventual attrition from the team. I mean, we've got a lot of people on the team that have been on it for a while, and they're either going through the promotional process, moving on to other units, or some of them are just at the point that they're going to be retiring and leaving the department. So,
like this guy right here.
yeah. And we got to forecast for future needs. If you're not investing in the future of your team, your team can collapse very quickly.
Yeah.
So
Oh, without a doubt.
putting something together like a HazMat Academy, really the entire special ops division has done this. So we have a dive, basically like a dive academy for our rescue divers.
Great. I didn't know that.
We have a rope or tech rescue academy, and we've partnered with the theme parks in the area and actually go out and do training with their personnel on the rides on a regular basis. So all those things are about building partnerships, but you want to make sure that when you're going out to these types of scenarios and doing that kind of training, that your people are ready to go out there and show what your department can do. So having an academy like this where people get in and, you know, get to brush up their skills and build that skill set, it's just going to do wonders for you down the road.
Awesome. Well, before we go, if anybody has questions on the HazMat Academy, you can email me at bob@hazmat101 consultants or derek@shaman@outlook.com. Either way, you guys can get a hold of us and we'll get you the information you need. Before we go, though, we want to remind everybody about one of our new ventures, HazMat HQ, which is a digital magazine. This is the January issue. Obviously, we're rolling into March, and we'll be dropping that one here in a few days. So please check it out. You can go to hazmathq.com, and you can see all the previous issues. I think we've got 5 or 6 in there already. Check it out. And also, if you want to contribute or, you know, send us something that possibly be in the magazine, shoot us an email, send it to us. We'll tell you what kind of font and so on we're looking at. And we will take a review of it and see if we can get it in there. Also, before we leave, I want to mention some social media sites. Obviously, HazMat 101 Consultants, Facebook and YouTube. Please sign in to YouTube. Check it out. Click on the subscribe and alarm so you're notified for the latest, greatest episode that's out there from us, as well as the HazMat Guys Roundtable, first Tuesday night of the month, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live show. And the HazMat Group 2, HazMatter Group, and Common Sense HazMat. All great Facebook pages for you to ask questions and information and, you know, chat with others like us, which is a small group. Probably a good thing for a lot of reasons. Derek, I almost forgot. Conferences. This is conference season.
Yes.
I think we may be going to Massachusetts. I think we're going to Michigan. We're going to Oklahoma. We're going to Baltimore. Just found that one out yesterday. We're super excited for that one. So we will see you live and in person at one of those, I'm sure. And we'll chat. We'll sit around the bar and talk HazMat. That's what we do.
Yeah, 2 drink minimum.
2 drink minimum. Yeah, you got to buy us at least 2 drinks. Derek, any final words?
No, you know, it's another good day and I'm ready to go take a nap. So I have nothing else for you.
All right, my brother, you take care, and everybody else out there, stay safe.